The next measure relates to Resolution Framework 2.0 for COVID-related stressed assets of individuals, small businesses and MSMEs. The resurgence of COVID-19 pandemic in India in recent weeks and the associated containment measures adopted at local and regional levels have created new uncertainties and impacted the nascent economic revival that was taking shape. In this environment, the most vulnerable category of borrowers are individual borrowers, small businesses and MSMEs. The following set of measures are being announced today, specifically targeting these groups of borrowers. And this particular set of announcements, there are three components to it. The first component is as follows. Borrowers, that is individuals and small businesses and MSMEs having aggregate exposure of up to rupees 25 crore and who have not availed restructuring under any of the earlier restructuring frameworks, including the Resolution Framework 1.0 of RBI dated 6th August 2020, and who were classified as standard as on 31st March 2021, shall be eligible to be considered under the Resolution Framework 2.0. Restructuring under the proposed framework may be invoked up to 30th September and shall have to be implemented within 90 days after invocation. In respect of, and the second component, now I am proceeding to the second component of this set of announcement. In respect of individual borrowers and small businesses who have availed restructuring of their loans under the Resolution Framework 1.0, where the resolution plan permitted moratorium of less than 2 years, lending institutions are being permitted to use this window to modify such plans to the extent of increasing the period of moratorium and or extending the residual tenure up to a total of 2 years. Other conditions will continue to remain the same. And the third component relates to small businesses and MSMEs which were restructured earlier, and this measure is intended to ease their working capital accommodation and the working capital availability for small businesses and MSMEs. And the announcement is as follows. In respect of small businesses and MSMEs restructured earlier, lending institutions are being permitted as a one-time measure to review the working capital sanction limits based on a reassessment of the working capital cycle, margins, etc. The next announcement relates to rationalization of compliance to KYC requirements. Taking forward the initiative of the RBI for enhancing customer convenience, it has been decided to rationalize certain components of the extant KYC norms. These include A. Extending the scope to video KYC known as video-based customer identification process, that is VSIP, for a new category of customers such as proprietorship firms, authorized signatories and beneficial owners of legal entities, and for periodic updation of KYC. B. Conversion of limited KYC accounts opened on the basis of Aadhaar eKYC authentication in non-face-to-face mode to fully KYC compliant accounts. C. Enabling the use of KYC identifier of centralized KYC registry for VSIP and submission of electronic documents, including identity documents issued through DigiLocker as identity proof. And D. Introduction of more customer-friendly options, including use of digital channels for the purpose of periodic updation of KYC details of customers. And further, keeping in view the COVID-related restrictions in various parts of the country, regulated entities, that is financial entities regulated by the RBI, are being advised that for the customer accounts where periodic KYC updating is due or pending, no punitive restriction on operation of customer accounts shall be imposed till 31st December 21, unless warranted due to any other reason or under instructions of any other regulator, enforcement agency, court of law, etc. Account holders are, however, requested to update their KYC during this period. The next announcement relates to utilization of floating provisions and counter-cyclical provisioning buffer. In order to mitigate the pandemic-related stress on banks and as a measure to enable capital conservation, banks are being allowed to utilize 100% of floating provisions or counter-cyclical provisioning buffer held by them as on 31st December 2020 for making specific provisions for non-performing assets with prior approval of their respective boards. Such utilization is permitted with immediate effect and up to 31st March 2022. The final announcement is relates to relaxation in overdraft facility for state governments. To enable the state governments to better manage their fiscal situation in terms of their cash flows and market borrowing, certain relaxations are being permitted with regard to availment of overdraft facilities. Accordingly, the maximum number of days of overdraft, that is OD, in a quarter is being increased from 36 to 50 days, and the number of consecutive days of OD from 14 to 21 days. This facility will be available up to September 30th of this year. The Ways and Means advance limits of states have already been enhanced on 23rd April this year. The relevant circulars and notifications relating to all the announcements which I have made will be issued separately starting today. Let me now conclude and state as follows. The immediate objective is to preserve human life and restore livelihoods through all means possible. The second wave, though debilitating, is not insurmountable. As I have said earlier, it is during our darkest moments that we must focus on the light. We have lessons to draw from our experience of last year when as a nation we came together and overcame the once-in-a-generation challenge imposed by the first wave of the pandemic. At the RBI, we stand in battle readiness to ensure that financial conditions remain congenial and markets continue to work efficiently. We will work in close coordination with the government to ameliorate the extreme travels that our citizens are undergoing in this hour of distress. We are committed to go unconventional and devise new responses as and when the situation demands. We must also stay focused on our future, which appears bright even at this juncture, with India set to emerge as one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Today, we have taken some steps, we meaning the Reserve Bank of India. Today, we have taken some steps and we will continue to be proactive throughout the year, taking small and big steps to deal with the evolving situation. We must remain resolutely focused on a post-pandemic future of strong and sustainable growth with macroeconomic and financial stability. I call upon all stakeholders to come forward once again to address the challenges posed by the current wave of the pandemic while remaining on guard against future waves. In closing, I again quote the words of Mahatma Gandhi, and I quote, "Our faith should be like an ever-burning lamp which not only gives us light but also illuminates the surroundings." Thank you. Namaskar.